Hi, it's Tim Hagen from Progress Coaching, and welcome to another episode for the Coaching Conversations podcast. Now, we are on Stitcher, we are on iTunes, and multiple different channels. Please check us out. Now, one of the things that you'll get out of our podcast episodes is a lot of content, a lot of strategy. It's not fluff, it's not concept, yet we really want you to engage with the content and let us know your feedback. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. If there's topics you'd love to have us address, we would love to share them with you. Let us know your impact and let us know your feedback. Welcome to a masterclass in approachability, coachability. Do you know we spend millions, hundreds of millions of dollars just in the United States on topics such as leadership, emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and we put that onus and responsibility on leaders to disseminate, to apply. And we take this very top-down approach. And we do the same thing. We provide those services. What I would share with you is I think we have the missing piece. When you think about your school systems, what do we want our kids to do? And currently we're in the process of writing a book, Coaching Your Kids with the End in Mind. Do we want our kids to be terrible teammates, to undermine their bosses? Do we want our kids to become resistant in the workplace with their bosses down the road? Of course not. Yet here's the funny thing. It's exactly what happens. Let me give you some numbers and statistics. 76% of people are at their most motivated state when they're progressing and improving. Now, why do I lead off with that? Almost 8 out of 10 people are at their most motivated state, and this is where leaders can participate. When we call people into the office, the employee's first response is usually in their mind, what did I do wrong? And if we reverse that, we will keep them engaged. Now, here's where some of the numbers go a little bit south or get a little bit tougher. According to Gallup, 71% of people, 7.1 out of every 10 are neutral or actively disengaged, meaning they're negative. So think if you become a leader, you take over a team of 10 people, you're already 7 people in the hole who are undecided or they're negative. And that makes it tough. Here's the statistic I love to share. Tasha Eurich, one of my favorite authors and subject matter experts, has really devoted a large part, if not most of her career, to self-awareness. In her survey, 95% of the people said, yep, I'm highly self-aware. When she tested them, only 10% were. So now think about this. Think about 7.1 people being neutral or negative. Then 8.5 out of those same 10 people lack self-awareness. The only way you can improve anything is to look in the mirror and say, I need to improve. That's self-awareness. I think it's the major tenet of emotional intelligence. So think about that. Now, let's combine that with 42% number, 4.2 out of every 10 people, according to McKinsey, in Q4 of 2022, yet the numbers have actually been supported with some other research, and in some research have even gone higher, meaning 4.2 or 42% of today's employees are actively looking for jobs due to a lack of career conversation and coaching. So you're a leader, you got 4.2 of your 10 people maybe looking for jobs, 7.1 who are neutral or negative, 8.5 aren't even looking in the mirror. That makes it really tough. Now, if I lack self-awareness, is that my boss's responsibility? Or is that my responsibility? I want to start off with a quick story. Recently, I was at one of our client sites in person. We have a lot of virtual clients as well. And this guy was just complaining and complaining and complaining. And this is where we as leaders have a wonderful opportunity to become great coaches. Now, anybody who knows me knows that one of the things I'm working on, will probably work on until my last day on earth, and that is I talk fast. You can probably hear that. And sometimes I can rush. And because I'm so adept at coaching, because I've been teaching it and I role play it all the time, sometimes I can go too fast. And so I've been working very hard, ironically, with a coach. slowing down my pace. So I'm in a conversation with the guy who's pretty laid back, but he was complaining. And he kept saying, well, I feel, and they. And he never once said, here's what I'm working on. So I asked him a question. I said, I'm going to ask you a question. I said, I hear your complaints about the company. I hear your complaints about your boss. I hear your complaints of kind of where you've ended up in terms of your career. I want to ask you 2 questions, but you have to answer them honestly. And really nice guy, but kind of tough. And so I said, no BS. I want to hear your crap. I want absolute honesty. He said, oh, you got it. I said, will you do me a favor? He said, okay, sure. I said, take a big, deep breath. And I mean, not out loud, but really tell yourself you're going to be honest. And he does it. And I said, do another one. I know it's corny. Just will you do it? So what I was trying to do is get him into a calm state, a less defensive state. So he gets done and he does 3 deep breaths and he's really in a calm state. And I said, what do you want to do specifically? I want to know where you want to go, what you want to do more of. It could be inside your job. So that's an intrinsic coaching question related to motivation, or even outside your job, which is an extrinsic motivation question. That's my first question. The second question I want you to answer with absolute brutal honesty with yourself, and that is, are you doing anything outside of work, such as self-learning, classes, online tutorials, to pursue your answer to number 1? Let's start with number 1. And when I prepped him on question number 2, I could see his face kind of get drawn and his jaw drop a little bit. I think I knew the answer was nothing. So we get to the first question and he said, well, I don't know. I just, it's kind of tough to describe. And he's just hemming and hawing. He's really not answering the question. He goes, I just feel like sometimes I've been passed over. I said, whoa, back up. I didn't ask you what happened. I asked you, what do you specifically want to do? Now, I'm going to rush to the end of the story. Or I shouldn't say rush. I'm going to go to the end of the story. And I said to him, it's interesting because I've asked you what you specifically want. I said, do you feel like you've answered me? He said, probably not. And we both started laughing. I said, okay, that's cool. I said, I know these are weird questions, so I'm giving him some grace and latitude. And finally he said, I've always kind of wondered what it would be like to be a supervisor and lead a team. I said, awesome. Now, keep in mind, motivation is not always a promotion. And I said, okay, do you have an answer to number 2? He said, well, I wouldn't even know what to do. I said, I'm going to ask you again. Number 2, are you doing anything to train, to prep, to self-educate yourself on becoming a supervisor and developing a team for the first time? Yes or no? Well, I said, stop. Yes or no? And he said, no. I said, fantastic. And I could see his face get drawn. I said, so I'm going to go back to your first answer. Have you sat down with your boss and share this? He said, well, I don't know if I could trust it. I said, you keep giving me narrations. And what I was doing, everybody, is I was breaking him down, because what happens is if 85%, going back to our numbers, of people lack self-awareness, we start to tell each other the story. Well, I didn't get the promotion because life's unfair. My boss has it out for me. Oh, by the way, youth sports. My kid's not playing because the coach doesn't like him or her. I think it's unfair. Everything's unfair. Get over it. And so finally I looked at him and I said, I want you to hear something, and I don't want you to respond for 45 seconds. He said, okay. I said, no, I'm not kidding, because you're going to get pissed off. And I'm using language like this. He said, what's that? I go, you cannot answer a frickin' question clearly or concisely. I'm wondering if that's why you're in the position you're in right now, which isn't a bad position. I'm wondering why people haven't come to you and said, you should be a supervisor. Just because you want it, I'm wondering if you're also not exhibiting supervisor attributes of great leadership, teamwork, positive attitude, mentality, shows up with a book in his hand. Here's a book I'm reading. I'm also taking a course at the local community college. That's not occurred to you, has it? That hasn't happened. Someone hasn't come up to you. So don't say anything. Just wait 45 seconds. And the reason I was doing that is I was trying to use some reflective coaching to maintain a sense of calmness. He looks at me after 45 seconds. He said, no, I haven't. I said, okay, cool. Do you get you're at the starting gate? He said, I do. I said, do you get that you have a wonderful opportunity to turn things around? He said, I do. I said, do you know when you start to things around, people are going to look at you funny like, what's gotten into him? And then you're going to have cynics. He said, yeah, I would imagine that is going to happen. I said, that's why you got to educate on the outside. Being a supervisor, being a leader of a team is fantastic, but it comes with a bucket of crap. Yet I think you can handle it. And I want to participate with you. Are you cool with that? He said, absolutely. I said, great. I'll meet you here tomorrow at 8:00. He said, great. So I stopped by the company, and it's not far from where I live, and I dropped off a book by John Maxwell. I think it's 10 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. I said, I want you to read this, and then I got you a second book, My Iceberg is Melting by John Cotter, which is a fable about a penguin community where the iceberg is melting. And he said, okay. And I said, I want you to read this, and I want you to think about how you would handle that iceberg. What penguin are you? Because they all have character names. And then I want you to think about, of the laws by John Maxwell, which one stood out to you the most? And what I was really doing is getting him to think critically. And I said, now I'm going to ask you to do a third thing. And if you miss a week, I'm not going to work with you anymore. And here's the good news. It only takes you 2 minutes. He said, oh, great. What's that? And this is where we start to implement something called approachability, coachability. The first thing that we typically do with clients is we teach something called EAT feedback. We have a whole program that measures it. We track it. We record it. And what I mean by record is they have to journal in this online tool that we create that literally depicts what happened. I said, every week I'm going to give you a source, boss, peer from another department, family member, friend outside of work, teammate inside your department, and you're going to ask for feedback. You're going to ask them, what are 2 things I do well? And, not but, and one thing or one area where you have an opportunity to improve your game. And you are going to eat that feedback. He said, what does that mean? I said, you're going to embrace it when you get the feedback and say, first of all, thank you. The A is you're going to ask, what can I do to improve in that area? And then when you hear that answer, you're going to tell them, here's what I'm going to do with your feedback so you can show that you're accountable to the process and you're accountable to their feedback and you're going to put it into action. You know what that'll do? He said, what's that? I said, you're going to completely change your life. And I get this look of dismay. And he said, what do you mean? I said, 99% of people do not take the time to go ask for feedback and smile. Now you're going to hear feedback that you're not going to like. Oh, and you're going to hear feedback you disagree with. I want you to still eat it. The thing about feedback you always have to remember, your reaction will create the next action or lack of action. He said, what do you mean? I said, if I give you feedback and you, yeah, but, that wasn't me. Yeah, but, I don't want to give you feedback. It's exhausting. I'd rather just leave you alone, leave you in your present position, never thinking about you as a supervisor, help and promote you. And I smiled at him. And he smiled back and he said, wow. I said, that's the power of differentiation. Most people don't do it. You know how I know that? He said, how? I said, 85% of people lack self-awareness. I don't need to work on anything. Why would I go ask for feedback? 7.1 are neutral or negative. Yeah, I'm just going to be cynical. That 2.9 or that 29%, those people work hard. And he smiled at me. I said, so the numbers are in your favor, even though you haven't really started yet. Read the book. Share it with your boss. Ask for feedback once a week from one of the 5 or 6 resources I just gave you, or sources. And then I want you to journal it. And I want you to tell me what you're learning about yourself. And you're going to cultivate self-awareness. When you cultivate self-awareness, you're going to craft and develop humility, objectivity, empathy, really good listening skills, because it stinks sometimes to hear things you don't want to hear. Remember the formula. What are 2 strengths I exhibit, and what's the area where I have an opportunity to improve? Notice I did not say constructive feedback. And I looked at him and I said, get feedback in your terms. Get it before somebody needs to give it to you. It's that simple. So fast forward, we're about 4 or 5 weeks later. Somebody at the company comes up and says, what's gotten into him? He's easier to work with. He's actually enjoyable. And I went to his boss and I said, how's he doing? He goes, he keeps asking me for feedback. It's weird. I said, is he reacting okay? And the boss says, yeah, he's great. What? It's just weird. I said, you mean like he's investing in himself and he's looking in the mirror and he's cultivating self-awareness? What a weirdo. And we both started laughing. He goes, yeah, when you put it like that. And go, I hope you're celebrating it. He said, you know what? I probably need 2 more. I'm going to grab them for lunch. You know, everybody, as dumb and as simple as that story sounds, that is as simple as it gets when it comes to coaching. Yet what we have to do, all of us, employees, individual contributors, all leader levels, is we have to become approachable and coachable. And the way we become approachable is to approach others so they are comfortable approaching us. And when you ask for feedback, you've actually started the coaching process. And when you say thank you and you eat it and you embrace and you ask and you tell, guess what happens? They want to give it to you more. They become your investor. You know, I often think about investments is when somebody comes to you and says, I've got this great investment. You know, I've got this duplex we could buy into. And your first reaction is, no, I'm not a risk taker. And they immediately dismiss it. They refute the investment. It's a lot like a parallel to feedback. When we refute the feedback, people don't want to give you feedback again. They want to avoid you. No one will say it. I'll say it. It's the same thing with investments. If you immediately come up with this reaction to, I don't want to hear your full idea. That sounds dumb. They're never going to want to invest in you again or invest with you. It's that simple. So the way we cultivate this is to become approachable and coachable. Ask for feedback. Praise others. Understand you have blind spots or a lack of self-awareness. We all do. And when you ask questions, and you really listen and you don't rebuttal and say, yeah, but, well, in that situation, and we want to explain it away so we feel better about ourselves. It's a load of crap, and we all do it. So the way you differentiate yourself is to ask for feedback. Make it easy for people to approach and coach you. Respond favorably and say thank you, even if you disagree with the feedback. Because what you're doing is you're building a revolving door. People will keep walking through that to invest in you. If you but them, guess what's going to happen? You're going to lock that door. They're never going to even touch the door handle. So think about that as you go forward. Think about the things that you have an opportunity to do to raise your game, to become approachable and coachable. Now, if this intrigues you, put on the subject line, approachable, coachable. Send me an email at tim@progresscoachingleader.com. We have a whole program called Approachability Coachability Series, where every month we do 30-minute segments teaching a facet of approachability and coachability, how to eat feedback, how to develop self-awareness, how to understand your own emotional intelligence, how to be a great teammate, how to use active and attentive listening skills to differentiate yourself. All topics around differentiating yourself to become approachable and coachable. Here's the best part. If you're a leader who has employees and you want them to become more approachable, coachable, at the end of every segment, we deliver something called a LAST assessment. LAST stands for learn, action, share, and tell. What did you learn? What actions did you take? What actions are you going to take? Share of your successes and challenges, and tell us of your commitment going forward. We make sure that the learning lasts. You get a copy of that assessment for every session they attend. So if you're intrigued by this, we'll send you a schedule of our topics and timeframes. Send it to tim@progresscoachingleader.com. Just put on the subject line, approachability, coachability. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for listening to another episode of Coaching Conversations by Tim Hagen and Progress Coaching. Now, our company is always coming out with new and innovative solutions to help leaders coach their employees. And recently, we just created a new service called Coach to You, where leaders can pick and choose topics and assign 7 to 21 day programs for employees to learn and, more importantly, apply actions and then reflect and share what they're going to do going forward as a result of the learning. It's called Coach to You. We're literally bringing coaching to your employees. If you're intrigued, we'll have a link in each one of our episodes where you can get more information. And again, thank you so much for listening to another episode.